Welcome to the Field Lab podcast. We know that you're all here because you're passionate about health, learning about true health. Maybe it's keeping your health, maybe it's finding your health, maybe it's helping someone else with their health. We all have different reasons why we're here. If you run a human day connected to a really good environment that's filled with light, water, magnetism, that's filled with love and community, that is how humans default to health. In a world of resets, protocols, and quick fixes, we've been conditioned to believe that the healing journey should be fast and easy. To make matters more confusing, many of the programs and products that claim to heal you may initially make you feel better and rather quickly. But I know from working with thousands of patients that these quick fixes never translate to true healing. In fact, many actually leave people with less health. So that begs two important questions. Ones I get almost daily. What does it mean to heal, and how long does it take? In this episode, we define the word healing through the lens of nature, explain how long it takes to achieve true health, and shed light on how our modern day quick fixes don't heal you. In part two, we explore the biophysics of repair and regeneration, including the programs buried within you that are actually responsible for what we call true healing and how they couple to the light cycle to form a coherent, self-repairing organism. All deep dive episodes are available exclusively to members of the Field Lab Network. To learn more about membership, head over to the link in the bio. And remember, health only happens in community. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure to share it with someone you care about. Now let's dive into the episode.
Healing is one of the many words in the wellness space that have unfortunately lost all of their meaning because it's been associated with protocols and products that promise really quick health and promise that you'll feel good. So people have a really warped expectation of how long it takes to heal and really like what does it even mean to heal. So I think we should start there. From your perspective, what does it mean to heal? What does that word look like to you?
So maybe good to root like my old thinking with current thinking, because I think you just defined something very specific that we're kind of in times where a lot of patients coming to us are feeling very over protocoled. They've done protocols to heal, maybe they've done multiple protocols to heal, and it may not actually give them more health.
Right.
They're feeling that. So we're in kind of this messy time where 20 years ago, I thought differently about this answer than I do today. And that's maybe a good journey to go back into, was that like when I was in medical school, most of the doctors that I trained under were doing protocol based supports. The thought was if you just gave the body what it needed, kind of met the needs of one's deficiency, like there's kind of a,
Right.
I often think like, I don't really always remember what I was taught other than this thinking that you could provide the body what it needed, especially if there were deficiencies, and give it a little bit of time with reworking diet and movement, maybe that a 21-day protocol or a 6-week protocol or a 10-day protocol would heal whatever it was that your ailment was.
So in that paradigm, replacing what was lost was all that was needed to restore normal health, as opposed to asking why it was lost.
A lot of ways. It sounds a little cryptic, but I really think that healing was sort of offered as a feeling better.
Okay.
That if you came, you need and feel well. A lot of times when my early patients would come in, especially if they were 20 years ago finding functional medicine, it was very ill-defined. Many people came in because they had the blanket diagnoses. They had the IBS, they had the fibromyalgia, they had low energy,
Mhm.
they had poor sleep. They didn't have necessarily a super specific diagnosis that they were taking a super specific drug for.
Mhm.
Most of those patients were kind of still stuck in the very allopathic model. But there were a lot of those initial patients where let's face it, people started thinking, no one's really defining my symptoms, but I know I don't feel good.
Okay.
And oftentimes it was a similar pattern.
Mhm.
And that's what I was taught in medical school was, okay, clean up the diet, move the body, if there's deficiencies, treat them, and see what happens.
Mhm.
And frankly, so many patients got better. And that was really the offering of healing. But because people felt better, this was absolutely what created patients that were really happy.
Mhm.
And that was 20 years ago.
Right.
And that often came with, here's a protocol, do a 21-day detox. A lot of patients felt better. In
Mhm.
fact, I would run them once a year in groups because people would feel better.
Right.
And, when I initially practiced medicine and when you're taught to think, gosh, people feel better,
Mhm.
like you've healed them.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, people would continue with a better diet. They would live a healthier lifestyle in that sense of moving the body, eating better, maybe being more mindful of stress. Unfortunately, that's before I learned anything about biophysics, and it was really before I thought of healing as getting to true health
Okay.
instead of healing as just feeling better.
So they felt better, but they weren't achieving true health as like the normal state of cellular function.
Unfortunately not. I go back into, like this week, I saw a patient, an old patient who I had not seen since 2020. Actually, it's a great point of like I hadn't seen him since 2020, right at the time when I was really transitioning my practice for patients.
Mhm.
And we kind of regrouped. He was kind of ready to come back, move to Florida. He actually was in Florida at the time. And it was like a moment where I had said to him, gosh, I know it's only been 6 years and it doesn't seem like that long, but basically how I practiced before and how I practice now. And then we were going through his intake, all of the biophysics based way of life errors,
Right.
like wearing sunglasses and burying yourself from sun, working in a shop under artificial lights. I mean, these are just things I had not really put into play with patients back in 2020.
Mhm.
And it reminded me, gosh, how different it was. Now, he was back because when I did help, he had said it. I was the only doctor that had helped him.
Mhm.
And he went from feeling really terrible every day to feeling better most days, but never fully healed.
Okay.
And now I say fully healed because I'm using the terminology. I know this is a long way around to like what is healing in our sense, but maybe we should tie this back to then like centralized health versus decentralized health.
Mhm.
If you think of it through the lens of centralized health, then protocols that are centralized, healing that's centralized, really just can make you feel better,
Mhm.
but doesn't improve your redox potential, doesn't improve your circadian function, doesn't store energy for later use, doesn't repair your cells, doesn't do anything for your mitochondria, like, really doesn't provide you true health as we've laid out in with Field Lab.
Right.
And that's so unfortunate because it is how centralized doctors are trained to treat patients. And it,
Mhm.
to some degree, works really great because people can feel better oftentimes. At least that was definitely in the past.
Right.
I think we're having this conversation because we've now had more patients come in and these protocols aren't working anymore.
No,
Not
everybody's
the
tried.
same way that they did before. Sometimes they're not working at all.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're actually making people feel worse. And, these are things that cost money
People
and
spend
time.
astronomical amounts of money.
Yes, what we're trying to really reframe around is that decentralized health, thinking about you with a decentralized way of living, can actually heal to have true health.
Right,
But the big difference here is time.
right.
That centralized medicine tends to package in small segments. Here's a 21-day, here's a 10-day, here's a 6-week. I don't know anyone who's saying, "Hey, here's your 3-year plan. Strap in. You're gonna do okay. You're gonna." I mean, actually, wait. I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of these like chronic Lyme protocols that I do have patients that are told this is going to be a year of this, and then we're
Mhm.
gonna have to switch. And it's gonna be a year of this. That does happen a little bit more now,
Okay.
but it's still very much these like short-term protocols. And then
Right.
you're gonna do this, and then you're gonna feel this way, and then you're gonna switch to this, and then you're gonna feel this way. And
Mhm.
they'll just keep giving you protocols.
Right.
But I really think that people are getting to the point of just being overloaded with
Mhm.
these protocols.
Right.
And then if you're not feeling better, again, like we're very aware of who's coming into our office
Mhm.
in the sense that if you do a 21-day protocol and you feel better, you're probably not coming into our door.
No.
Sadly, like we always sort of get to that point of like it's sort of a bummer that it takes oftentimes someone losing their health
Mhm.
or someone close to them losing their health. And it has to be very clear to that patient that if they do not change something, understand it more,
Mhm.
then they probably will not have a future with
Right.
health in it.
Right.
And that's a real sticking point for most people that are coming to us, either people with field lab or patients coming into the office. It's rare that someone's happy with their 21-day detox and looking for more.
Right. Absolutely.
Which I think is where, the centralized medical model is really keeping people from understanding this bigger story
Mhm.
that you can't heal by doing a 21-day protocol.
Right.
If you understand biophysics, it's impossible. You might feel better, but feeling is not health.
Why would somebody feel better doing a 21-day protocol or doing something short term within that centralized paradigm?
So with my past, I've guided a lot of patients through what I would define as like traditional detoxing.
Mhm.
Generally, elimination diets, generally detoxification protocols of supplementation, sometimes conscious movement. And it's very obvious to me that many people 20 years ago did feel better. It
Mhm.
often came with weight loss, it came with more energy. And when you understand it through the lens of the biophysics, you realize those protocols are just stealing some stored energy for a short term benefit.
Okay.
And you can feel better, but that's actually stealing from your future health.
So is the body in that moment constraining the energy and saving it, and now you're asking it to pull from that?
You're almost forcing it
You're
to
forcing
pull
it?
from it. That, what's the goal of a biophysics-based day is that hopefully you're using up as little energy as possible
Mhm.
and storing it as really information for later use. Like
Mhm.
you're banking for your future health each and every day when you understand it through a true health perspective.
Mhm.
That's a very different conversation than medicine is having because that is a decentralized based way of thinking
Right.
around health.
Mhm.
But if you're thinking about centralized health, then unfortunately it does have a lot of feelings
Mm.
around, did I wake up and feel good? If that's not the case, what do you do to feel better?
Right.
most people are landing at a biochemistry based solution because it's the 99.9% of the solutions that are offered.
That's all anybody
Yeah,
knows,
and if you
unfortunately.
go anywhere, look at anything, you know, even I have patients sound like they ask AI, like
Mhm.
their AI will give them protocols,
Right,
very specific protocols,
right.
more defined than any 21-day detox that I ever guided patients through. But now it's not always a slam dunk. Where I can tell you, when I started being a doctor, I was very confident that if it didn't work for someone, it must be because they weren't doing it right.
Right.
And that's kind of what I saw.
Mhm.
I mean, it was very rare that a patient doing a 21-day detox didn't feel better.
And did they often see lab changes?
I did not do
Mm,
before and after for 3 weeks.
okay.
Most of the most of it was based on
Just how you
energy,
feel. Interesting.
body composition,
Yeah.
which I've always monitored with patients, energy, sleep, like the metrics they could measure, mostly because I wasn't redoing labs in a
That
short.
frequently.
Yeah, not back then. I mean, it didn't really that would be expensive,
Mhm.
but you didn't even need to.
Right.
Like really, everyone felt better that did it.
Mhm.
It was I can't. I mean, I'm sure there were, but like I cannot remember patients that did poorly, which to me now I think about this and I think, well, 20 years ago, most people still had some redox potential left. When
Right.
you understand what we're saying and you realize that it's from birth until about 30 years old that you build your battery power.
Mhm.
Most people 20 years ago like had a pretty decent first 30 years.
Right.
So they had some charge to steal from,
Right.
and it's so unfortunate that that is what functional medicine knows because that worked and it worked so well. And everyone, all of my colleagues, like, I just remember we were also enamored by the fact that, like, we could got people feeling better.
Yeah, definitely confuse the situation.
And then, that's really where centralized medicine was so happy
Mhm.
that, here patients were looking for an alternative. If they didn't, oftentimes it it was the patient that didn't want to just take a drug. Or maybe there was no drug solution for their fatigue. Maybe there was no drug solution for their IBS. Like they were very much in a stuck state.
Mhm.
So then when they would come to me or one of my colleagues, we got a lot of people feeling better.
Mhm.
I I again look back at that now and certainly it's not a total failure. Some people I did have plenty of patients that felt better and we would kind of work through time and they would maintain feeling better. Oftentimes they would do a yearly detox or, something. And it's too bad I don't have every patient that I had from 20 years ago, but I do have some of them, and they've journeyed with me through this change in perspective.
Mhm.
And now they can think differently and
Right.
realize that that's all we knew at that point.
Mhm.
Now we know more. So, if you're sitting back in just doing protocols as a doctor, it is unfortunate because now there is opportunity to not just get patients feeling better, because that's the distinction is that you can potentially do a protocol. If you do have some redox potential, then you might feel better.
Mhm.
That could still be a patient that you are. You might be maybe younger, or you might have done years of protocols and potentially drained your redox potential. So now you don't have anything to pull from.
Mhm.
You might do your protocol, not get better, or it could actually be a problem where you're somewhat negative battery charge and now you do a protocol and you actually feel worse from it.
Right.
And we see it as times have changed and we need to change with it.
Mhm.
That it was too bad 20 years ago. Unfortunately, it worked.
Mm.
It worked. People felt better. As a doctor, when you offered a patient something that gave them relief that they couldn't get from anywhere else, it felt, like a safe protocol.
Right.
Sometimes it did lead them to better habits and better thinking.
Mhm.
But like everything in science, it's just what we know right now. It's
Right.
like a constant experiment.
Mhm.
And we have to be able to realize, okay, this is no longer really working. I think that functional medicine is sort of hoping people don't wake up to it. And now it's just more and more and more protocols. Oh, that protocol didn't work for you. You need to do this one instead.
Mhm.
Oh, you do this parasite protocol that didn't work for you. Oh, you must have, a chronic Lyme instead, or vice versa. Maybe it's mold, maybe it's something else. And now it's like these ultimate distractions instead of realizing it just may be and very much is that the biophysics within you has eroded.
Right.
Now, again, that's the harder conversation and why we're here, that it's easier as a patient to do the 21-day protocol.
Right, that sounds so nice.
It sounds nice. Oftentimes people are really overloaded
Who doesn't wanna feel better?
in
You know,
21
it's
days.
such a short timeline.
But you're probably here with us because either you've done that and it didn't work for you, or you're just tired of doing another
Mhm.
protocol and not actually having more health.
Right.
Because we're talking about true decentralized health,
Mhm.
that you can each and every day be confident that you're waking up, connecting to good electromagnetic energy and information, and that your body can actually take it in and transform it and put it into your redox battery.
Right.
And that you're not having to use that energy to run a disease process,
Mhm.
to try to just get by until your body gets better. And there's no protocol for that.
No.
This is just where protocols are not really the solution for decentralized health.
Mhm.
So we want to flip that thinking for people, that the protocol time period kind of needs to go.
Yeah, we gotta abandon that idea.
It just needs to go.
Mhm.
I don't know how long it's going to last for. I mean, I'm always surprised it keeps going, that there's just one more
Like, peptides
protocol.
seem like the next frontier of protocol medicine.
Maybe. I mean, other than it's just
Unfortunately.
like, oh, hey, we have a solution and you can be on this forever.
Right. I don't know. It's a good
It's a
question. I guess we'll
really
see how
good
it pans
question.
out.
It's a little it's a little more magic that I think people are looking for,
Mhm.
because 21-day detox might feel like work for people.
Right.
But injecting yourself with peptides,
True.
gosh, that's a lot easier.
Yeah, the protocol almost got transformed into the stack. Like, now it's
Right.
you have your stack and you
Yeah,
have
like, what are
your
your symptoms?
yeah.
You have gut symptoms, you have poor sleep, you have poor energy, you need to lose some weight.
Mhm.
Well, there's a stock for that, and guess what? You don't actually have to do any work.
I guess you're right. Protocols, they kind of define a time limit. Now people are just saying, "I'm good with doing this forever."
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe this comes back to, like, as you take
Mm.
proof of work out of the equation, you offer something that's more is easier.
Mhm.
And humans love ease. Unfortunately,
For
we're
sure.
just it's a trap that
Mhm.
we love comfort and ease and, hopefully having time to do other things. But the real issue is the story of health.
Right.
That when we come back to, what how we see it is that healing should be to have more health.
Mhm.
Now, healing needs to be decentralized healing, and decentralized healing can lead to decentralized health. But that's a different timeline,
Mhm.
because then now it's not a linear progression. So this comes back to what we talked about earlier, in our this season that we're doing. And it's very important to realize that time is not linear in a healing journey, that there are going to be time periods where there can be more work happening for healing, and there are going to be some time periods where it's going to be slower. But then you have to be able to look broader and realize that the human body is not really changeable day to day,
Hmm.
in that we don't just go to sleep at night and wake up the next day and we're a completely new person,
Hmm.
thankfully.
No, that's actually on purpose.
Yeah, but the problem is that you can't take a pill and be better tomorrow.
Right. Doesn't work like that.
Not with more health.
True health.
You might feel better,
Hmm.
but then you have to ask yourself, well, why did I take that drug and I felt better?
Hmm.
Why did I take that pain pill and I felt better? Because if you feel better in the short term, you have to be thinking about it as you've pulled redox, stored charge to get better in the short term. If you intend to reload it, maybe that can be a valid choice for you.
Hmm.
But you have to be able to understand biophysics to make those choices.
Could you be creating a bigger issue down the road?
If you don't understand that, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think there's going to be a future where a decentralized patient can be able to make more informed decisions. That maybe if you're a patient that we're talking about and each and every day you're working to get your health back, it doesn't mean that you won't have a moment where you might make a choice to feel better
Hmm.
for the next day.
Right.
Because that's important to realize, like, we're not just
This
talking
is
about like
realistic.
sitting back and just feeling tortured,
Hmm.
because that's not health either.
Right.
But if you're not doing a protocol or taking a drug or taking a peptide without really thinking about it through the lens of redox and your future self, then it's not a really good informed decision.
Right. Gotcha. What's a realistic timeline if somebody is approaching this biophysics-based healing journey and they're going all in, but they also want to know like what should I expect? How long should I kind of buckle in for the journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. We will typically tell patients probably a good frame of reference is 3 summers.
Hmm.
Now, we're saying 3 summers because we live in a location where we have winter and we have summer, we have seasons.
Right.
So most people are going to need multiple summer seasons to make the nonlinear progress. It's very rare that we have a patient that exceeds that timeline
Hmm.
a- in either direction.
Right.
Now, we've been doing this long enough. Obviously 2020 is sort of the moment where I started transitioning more with patients. I think by 2022, it was really all I was doing in practicing with patients. So now we're past that 3-year timeline,
Hmm.
and it's amazing to see what the human body is capable of actually doing
It totally proves
to
out.
heal.
Hmm.
It totally proves out. And I think that's the value of kind of what we're trying to offer with Field Lab is that we came to realize that one-on-one, patients working with us could understand
Hmm.
this 3-year journey and we would be there to support them. But then it's not enough just doing one-on-one visits. Like,
No.
you really have to be able to understand more and then have a lived experience of true healing to understand what we're saying.
Right.
Because it sounds like a different language. It sounds really crazy. I have many patients who come in and say, gosh, it's so hard because no one else understands what I'm doing, which is also why, we're trying to build a little more community too. So that way there is this like-minded understanding of, no, it can now be a choice of actual true health
Hmm.
through decentralized healing, which is pretty much the opposite of how the word is being used in even how I used to use it, but really in the functional health space, it's there's still a lot of offering of healing, but I don't see that as decentralized healing.
Right.
If you're working with a healer,
Hmm.
you it doesn't mean that somebody can't help to get you there, but
Right.
you have to be able to ask better questions. You have to be able to think about it yourself.
Right.
So like, what am I trying to achieve here? Maybe someone can help, deuterium deplete something, a structural fascial issue. But if you don't understand it through the decentralized lens, you won't understand what that healer's trying to help you to do.
Right.
Versus in a centralized thinking, you think, oh, I need to go keep getting like body work.
Mhm.
And maybe you need a monthly massage or but did that actually heal you?
Yeah, do you have any more health after doing that for 5 years? It's like, after all this time, have you gotten really anywhere?
Unfortunately, the answer is generally no,
Right.
which again is like who comes and finds us is normally the patient who can kind of step back and realize, okay, I haven't plugged in. Oftentimes it's they haven't plugged into the conventional system.
Yeah, they're skeptical.
Yeah, they're looking for a more alternative option.
Mhm.
Since 2020, I have more patients who were conventional, and then for various reasons, that might have turned on them, and now they're kind of forced to have alternative options. It's a different time that we're in for sure, but
Mhm.
we definitely know patients find us not because they're just happy feeling better.
Right. They want more. They want
They
true health.
want more.
Yeah.
They want more, and they understand if you look around and you realize, at least in America, there's not a lot of health here.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people eating healthy. There's a lot of people going to the gym. There's a lot of people taking tons of supplements. There's a lot of patient people doing 21-day protocols. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no lack of now functional medicine everywhere.
Mhm.
I mean, 20 years ago, it was like no one was doing it. The
Right.
patient coming to see me was because there was no access to this information.
Right.
Like there were no major online places. Maybe I shouldn't say that. It was like Mercola probably existed back then. And even so, that was a small
It's like a
subset of
tiny
people
speck
that
of.
like found him. And in 20 years, it's completely different.
Mhm.
Now we've gone from nothing to noise. And if you're a patient, how do you see through that? And so most of the time, again, I want to be clear with the definition because I think a lot of people may not even know that this is where they're at,
I
that
agree.
they you've done healthy things for 20 years, you've done healthy things for longer,
Mhm.
but you have no health,
Right.
or you're questioning, do I have health? If you don't know the answer to that, that means you're missing the biophysics based understanding.
Exactly.
You're missing living a decentralized way of being. And when you're missing that, you don't have the confidence that you have health
Right.
or even how to get it.
Yeah, you don't actually not even get there.
But you definitely know it's not a protocol
Mhm.
or a peptide that is going to get you health. Maybe you will feel better. And I'm not discounting that. I mean,
That's
that's
very
the
real.
craziest moment that we're in is that we are in a peptide moment, because the protocols kind of stopped working so great.
Mhm.
Peptides have been implanted as the solution. And it's no doubt it scares me because there is no one that doesn't I shouldn't say it. There are very few people who don't
Yeah,
feel
it's
better on
pretty.
these peptide stocks. In fact, most of the time now we have patients coming in saying, there has to be something not right here
Mhm.
because I went from being in chronic pain and immediately didn't have pain. I went from having no energy. Now I have energy. I went from never losing weight. Now I lose weight and
It just melts off.
it melts off.
Right.
I couldn't do this. I can do this. I had brain fog. I don't. I had anxiety. I don't. I had OCD. I don't. Like the
It's
list
unbelievable.
every week we compile a longer and longer list. And I worry because this is now the new drug that is getting patients better. It's going to be difficult to convince somebody that they don't have more health
Mhm.
with taking these stacks of peptides.
But it must be pulling so much redox if you
It
feel that much better.
is.
Yeah.
It is the bigger worry I have is that a 21-day detox, that probably was pretty insignificant in terms of pulling a redox battery charge.
Yeah, I was gonna say that before. Like the nature of protocols have changed.
Yeah, now the peptides are in some degree like force unloading a cell of their redox like at such a rapid rate
Hmm.
that what is the body doing to slow down the drain? This is where things go bad,
Hmm.
where it's not just all feeling better in the longer term.
Right.
What happens over more time? That's what we're seeing in practice is then the side effects, the deeper drain of can you actually recover?
Right.
If you've drained your redox potential so quickly and your cells have not been able because now they can't put up the natural brakes to slow that down because the stack of peptides is force eliminating it.
Hmm.
Who knows? I mean, maybe we're getting a little too sciencey,
We'll
in
save it.
this
This is
part
part two.
1.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something that will be
Mhm.
more important to really talk about because now we've had patients, it's been in the now recently, now we have patients doing the tripeptides like Retta. Like,
Right.
this is now what we're seeing in practice, and this is off-label usage,
Hmm.
which is a kind of a totally different time that we're in.
Right.
So, like, I look about, like, 20 years ago, like, functional medicine was almost not really looked at because we were doing protocols and 21-day detoxes and, maybe it did drain some redox potential, but it typically didn't harm people long term.
Hmm.
At least I would say most of my patients, it was very minor drain of redox that they were able to reload it. Now, this is actually
This is straight.
eliminating redox potential, and I don't know what a future self will look like.
It's crazy.
Like, will you have taken 20 years off your life or more
We don't
to
know yet.
feel better today?
Hmm.
But that's where we have to really think about these words: healing, health, time to heal and have health. Like, it's really important to be okay with true health. Decentralized health requires decentralized healing methods that are going to take a long time. And that's the science I think we should leave for part 2 of, like, what does that look like? Why does that take so long? Why is it that you have to go to sleep every night in order to then confirm the system, to remember who you are, to make small adjustments so you wake up the next day, maybe trying a little different opportunity, but that takes a day in, day out process. And then it takes a year process, and it takes multiple summers. But if you do that, you actually can regain health.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, if you're following along, you're probably hearing us say, well, the unfortunate is that was supposed to be the normal way of being a human.
You weren't supposed to lose it.
It was never really supposed to be lost.
Hmm.
It really never was lost until we kind of invented the light bulb and
100%.
decided we were going to be a little better than nature. And, here we are
Slippery
into
slope.
a different kind of technocracy experiment,
Right.
allowing ourselves to disconnect. And now we have to actually decide, what do we do to have health?
Hmm.
If you want centralized health, you can do protocols and feeling better and that can be a choice. But you should be given informed consent that it will take from your future health.
Hmm.
But if you want to think further down into your future self, you can start banking time by living a decentralized way of being.
I think the only other piece I would add is that no human, no product, no peptide can ever give you more health. Because I think the marketing is so elegant and nice that it's super easy, even for really smart people, to get trapped into this idea that a human being or even you can give yourself more health. It's what you're fundamentally saying is you need to plug back into nature And obviously that's what we kind of teach with the field lab message. So if you're interested in what that actually looks like, but that's the reality. Nobody can give you health. No product can give you health.
Yeah, the only way you will have health
Mhm.
is when you decentralize
Mhm.
yourself to nature.
Right.
It only works if you're connected
Mhm.
and in relationship. It
Right.
never works when you're
In control.
isolated,
Yeah.
when you're in control. That
That's
is
centralizing.
unfortunately the centralized way of thinking, which,
Mhm.
I think that when we know to be human, there's a little bit of a
It's this push
centralization
and pull. Mhm.
experiment that there's a push and a pull. Some of our ability to exist is to centralize a little bit every day, almost trying things out. Like that is what
Mhm.
allows it to work,
Right.
but never disconnecting from a decentralized source,
Right.
which is the cosmos,
Mhm.
which is then what provides and offers health,
Mhm.
but we've lost that connection. Now, there's many ways to find the path to being there, and that's kind of what we're here for. It's like, okay, we're not going to go live outside and pop a tent and like hope for the best. Like we have been able to see so many patients find health through our direction, but really through offering this
Just
knowledge
education. Yeah.
and then guiding patients through,
Mm.
doing an actual lived experiment.
Right.
And then when you do it that way, you actually are able to find health again.
Right.
And that's the hard thing though, is that it may take time because depending on where you were
Mhm.
to begin with, it might take 3 summers. It might take 2 summers and you are able to have more health. And then it's not so hard after that. Sometimes it takes more.
Mhm.
I can say patients sometimes surprise me, like we have a lot of patients who for absolutely sure, the ones that go all in, they definitely do speed up their timeline a little bit.
For sure.
And we should be clear about that. Like there are some people who are like, I'm all in for my health. Like it's very black and white. That's not the normal person though. Many
Right.
people, it's hard to make immediate change.
Mhm. Yeah, they need the slow
Yeah.
trickle of
And that's okay
change.
too.
That's great.
But then you have to be okay with, okay, where am I at? Like, am I truly doing all the things? Because that's the other problem is that, a lot of times we have patients say, I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm doing all the things, but we should be very clear. Like, this is doing all the things. It
Right.
can't be that you know,
Sometimes
sometimes saw
that's yeah.
sunrise, or maybe got 3 minutes, or you don't do it in the
Right.
winter, or you missed it by 30 minutes. Like, those are
It's
the
a lot.
things that hopefully will help continue to guide people through,
Mhm.
whether it's field lab, whether it's doing a health field trip with us, maybe it's, if needed, coming in as a patient. That's where you have to figure out what do you need to really understand for yourself
Mhm.
because this is so critical. Like we cannot we what happens to our human culture if
There's no health and no
there's no health in it?
culture. There's no
Like
human.
that's it.
Yeah.
Where that's the big story is
Yeah.
that maybe 20 years ago we still had some human health to lean on as a human population.
Right.
In 20 years, that's eroded so quickly. And then unfortunately, we have kids that are being born without it.
Mhm.
So now we have this real mess that we have to learn these concepts because if we do not,
Right.
like we don't have a future with human health in it.
Right.
And then if we don't have human health, it
It's kinda over.
it is kind of over,
Right.
but that is just not the way it has to be.
Exactly.
Because we just are so excited every week the
Mm.
amount of patients that now we have like truly a full 4 years in, but kind of a 6-year journey in. We have enough patients that have been able to listen and embrace it and just have health freedom again.
Right. And
It's
when yeah.
it's amazing.
When you think about it, 3 summers compared to maybe 40 or 50 years that it took for you to lose your health is not a huge amount of time.
It's not.
Like, that's not a huge trade-off considering it took so long to get to where you are.
Exactly. And then, what does that look like too? It's freedom. It's
Mm,
potentially, the protocols that you needed to feel better every year, you don't have to do
right, you're not
anymore.
spending money on all
Yeah,
this
you now have
crazy.
time to be with your family and travel and, do the things you want to
Just
do.
be
Like
human.
that's how we see health,
Right.
not being tied to the stress of the next protocol.
Right. Yeah, truly decentralized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Health requires the two major programs in your mitochondria to be day in and day out able to work throughout the course of a year. What happens to your future self if you don't clean up every night while your body is sleeping? I mean, this is really what the mitochondria were designed to do that they're no longer getting to do every night.
Mhm.
And if you don't have energy, it's not because your human body doesn't have energy.
Mm.
It's because your central nervous system, your consciousness cannot do energy
Not allowing it to.
because your human health is being taken out.
Right.
Where did we go wrong? We lost this deeper understanding of decentralization of nature.
Mhm.
Health is not in a peptide or in a protocol. Health is you connecting back to decentralized nature.